Hi, everybody, and welcome to SideQuest 30 of High Scores, High Stakes, the podcast that's usually talking about games, but is now reviewing them as well. I'm your host, as always, MrLuvvaLuvva, and with me this week is. Well, it's nobody. It is nobody. This past wee while has been pretty difficult to get people together to do a podcast together. This week has been absolutely impossible, so here's what you get. You get me all alone, but worry not, dear listeners, because the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire episode with Cardinal Smith answering the questions should be our episode next week. It is still happening. It is in the pipeline. It is just getting people together in order to record it is proving to be a difficult task. But enough about what's not possible. What is possible? I'll tell you what's possible. You're listening to this podcast because you think we have the content that's worth listening to, but you want more from us, and we're going to give you more. So where can you find High Scores, High Stakes outside the realm of podcasts and inside the realm of the internet? Well, dear listeners, the easiest way to do it is go to highscoreshighstakes.com. There on the top of the homepage, you will see links to all of our social medias, including YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, the whole heap. It's all there. Direct your browsers to highscoreshighstakes.com. If you're listening to this and you have reviewed it and you've given us a score and maybe even give us a written review, you can skip forward like 1 minute. If you're listening to this and you still haven't done that, here's how you do it. If you want to support us, all you have to do is give us a review on the podcast platform which you're listening to this. Give us a score review of what you think the podcast is worth. If you're feeling even more sassy than just giving us a star review, why not give us a written one as well? Include the good stuff, include the bad stuff. That's how we improve. That's how we get better. If you've already done both of those things, but you still haven't shared it with a family member or friend who you think will like the podcast, then why not do that now? Send someone a text message with a link to our Spotify or our YouTube or Apple's podcast. Send them the link. Let them listen to it. Let them pick up their own mind. If they do like it, brilliant, an extra listener. If they don't, well, you've done your duty as a diligent supporter of High Scores, High Stakes by sharing it. Obviously, I am alone this week, so I cannot ask the question of my co-hosts of what are they playing. But what I can do, dear listener, is ask you, what are you playing? If you're listening to this on Spotify, you can answer that by in the question of the week. Tell me what you're playing this week, whether you like it, whether it's worth playing, or whether you hate it and why you hate it. Either's good. Let me know what you're playing in the question of the week below. What I've been playing this week is very, very, very simple. It may be a game for an upcoming Game of the Month Club episode. It might be. It's unconfirmed at the minute. I cannot confirm nor deny the existence of a Game of the Month club on this game. What I've been playing is Tomb Raider Remastered Collection. I have been specifically playing through Tomb Raider 1, and it is excellent. It is excellent. I am officially further in Tomb Raider 1 than what 13-year-old MrLuvvaLuvva was able to achieve back in the day. It is incredible. I am in the Egypt levels, and let's just say that the game has really kicked up a notch. It is superb. But as I said, there may or may not be the existence of a Game of the Month Club episode on Tomb Raider coming in the very, very, very near future. But now that the intro is all out of the way, it's been nice and condensed this week. A little bit stinted, a little bit awkward. I'm not used to recording by myself. In fact, this might be the first ever podcast in which MrLuvvaLuvva has flown solo. So I have no one to bounce off. So what are we here to discuss this week? Well, if you've looked at the title of the episode, you know what we're doing is we are going to review Vampire Survivors. Why are we reviewing Vampire Survivors? It's a game that's been out like 2 or 3 years now, but at this stage of the game, well, really, really simple. It's a great game, and it is getting its long-awaited PlayStation release next Friday, which is the 29th of August 2024. It is finally coming to PlayStation. So enough of all this one-sided introduction that I have put you through for the last 3 or 4 minutes. Let us get into the topic of the week, which is, of course, the review of Vampire Survivors. Okay, so Vampire Survivors. I know most of you listening to this have probably played this in some capacity, but you never know. There might be someone out there who's going, "What is Vampire Survivors? I have never heard of it." Well, listener who's never heard of Vampire Survivors, what it is a arcade style time based survival shoot 'em up with roguelike elements. When I say shoot 'em up, that's not technically true. It is technically a twin stick shooter, but what the developer Ponkel has done is remove the necessity for one of those analog sticks. It is, of course, an auto shooter that has minimal gameplay, but it is a game that encourages build creation and experimentation from you, the player. It is about using your imagination. It is about taking what you know about your character, taking your character's strengths and emphasizing them, taking your character's weaknesses and sort of mitigating them as best as you can. Obviously, Vampire Survivors has been out for a good few years now. It released on mobile platforms, iOS and Android, in early access way back in 2021. It finally came out of early access in late 22 and released obviously on mobile platforms, PC and Xbox. And as I said at the start, it is coming to PlayStation Friday the 29th of August 2024. Vampire Survivors obviously takes a whole heap of inspiration clearly from the golden age of horror cinema, your Hammer horrors, your Wolfman, your Dracula, your Frankenstein, the Mummy, the whole heap. It also takes a lot of inspiration clearly from Castlevania. It's basically a horror light title, which will be music to Cardinal Smith's ears. I know he loves his horror titles, in which you take on a whole heap and manner of otherworldly monsters, demons, mythological beasts, and plants, believe it or not, and everything else in between. There is no horror stone unturned when it comes to the enemies in Vampire Survivors. Let's get into the review of this thing. I want to get the negatives out of the way because I really, really, really enjoy Vampire Survivors. I think it's a really good game, but it's not perfect. It's no game is. But let's get the weakest elements of Vampire Survivors out of the way. We'll start off with the negatives, which means we can go into absolutely loving Vampire Survivors for the majority of this episode. The two weakest elements to Vampire Survivors is its graphics and the music and the sound effects. I know what you're thinking. This is a game, Luvva. What are you talking about? It's a game. It's all about graphics and sounds. Well, no, it's not. Obviously, it's about gameplay, isn't it? And the gameplay is a million times better than the graphics and the sound. Vampire Survivors is nothing to look at. It really isn't. It is a top-down shooter, but the viewpoint is slightly off top-down. Everything in the game world is made up of pixels. Your character is pixels and very, very small. The enemies are also made up of a few pixels and also very, very small. They're all fully formed, of course. You know exactly what you're looking at. You know what your character looks like. When the enemy is a bat, it looks like a bat. When it's a snake woman, it looks like a snake woman, but they are very small and they are pixely. It's clearly taken its inspiration, that's what I was saying to start, from Castlevania. It looks like an enemy from Castlevania, only smaller and top down. And your character and these enemies are running around on mostly empty levels. They are big, wide, open spaces. They feel infinitely sized, but they aren't. They are finite levels. I think the graphics are definitely a reminder that this started its life off on mobile platforms, to be honest. They are very, very simple, and that was clearly to allow the game to run smoothly, and that is a really important aspect of Vampire Survivors. Even though the graphics are very basic, they're nothing really to write home about. It's not going to blow your mind. This is not a game you get out to your friends to convince them to buy the next generation console. But what it does allow the game to do is it allows to absolutely flood the screen with enemies, with projectiles, with area of effects, with a lot of stuff. In some parts of this game, you're literally up against hundreds, if not thousands, of enemies all at the same time, and it all rolls by a lovely, crisp 60 frames per second. The game doesn't really care what gets thrown at it. The engine is robust, and it never really drops any frames ever that I've really noticed, or definitely nothing noticeable anyway. It's not going to tax your PlayStation, but you won't care that it's not taxing your PlayStation once you get into the meat of Vampire Survivors. The music and the sound effects, honestly, this was a way bigger disappointment for me than the graphics were. I think if you're going to take inspiration from Castlevania, one of the most important aspects of Castlevania is the soundtrack. The music in Castlevania, every single level and every single game, is really memorable. People will hum the soundtrack of Castlevania, and it is 40 years old, coming up to 40 years old anyway. It's just got a timeless quality soundtrack. Vampire Survivors does not. It really doesn't. The music in Vampire Survivors is, it's okay. I guess it's okay. There's nothing wrong with the music in it, but there's nothing memorable. I think I've spent about 45 hours in Vampire Survivors on Steam. I've played it a lot. I can't think of a single theme from Vampire Survivors, and I think that says more than I ever can. I can't think of a single song on it. Think of the soundtrack of Vampire Survivors like the soundtrack of any Marvel Cinematic Universe movie, where yes, there's a theme to it, but you won't be able to recall it unless you hear it, and then you'll know exactly where that song comes from. That is what Vampire Survivors is. You won't remember the music, but if you hear it, you will go, oh, that's that music from Vampire Survivors. The sound effects are not any better, to be honest. They're serviceable. That is the best word I can describe for it. They do the job. Maybe the music and the sound effects being so forgettable is another side effect of it being a mobile game. Obviously, mobile games are designed to be played on the go when you're on the bus or you're on the train, or if you're in the passenger seat of a car and you're playing it, and you really don't want anyone else to hear what you're playing. Maybe you're listening to music or a podcast, or maybe you're talking to someone else as you play it and you've got your device turned right down. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know. I just don't know why the music and sound effects are really at this level. I think they could and should be better. Maybe it's because it was designed and developed and programmed by one person as well. There's only so much time a person can put into a game. I'm not saying the music and the sound effects are bad. I mean, none of it is bad per se at all. But I think if I was going out on a limb, I would say no music. None of the music and none of the sound effects are actually that good either. It takes away nothing from the game, to be honest. If you're looking at a game to play whilst you listen to a podcast, or while you're listening to a playlist you have on Spotify, or whatever it is. If you're looking for a game just to play with zero distractions other than the gameplay itself, Vampire Survivors is your game. But that's really it for the negatives that I can really think of when it comes to Vampire Survivors. Yeah, it really is. The rest of this episode, the rest of this review, is going to be all positive, because Vampire Survivors is just an absolutely superb game. So the gameplay in this game then, as I said at the start, it's a top-down auto shooter, time-based survival. So basically all you do is you choose one character from what is unlocked in your screen. I think you start with 6 characters you can pick from the off, and you get the rest of the 31 in the base game. So 31 characters in the base game. You get the rest of them through unlocking them through gameplay, which is great. And then you choose a map, and then your goal is just survive as long as you can against never-ending waves of enemies for as long as possible. the game does give you a goal. The goal is to survive the level for 30 minutes, um, which sounds really easy. It's really not. But yeah, you just have to pick a character, pick a map, and then just survive against waves of enemies. The way you survive then is basically when you drop into a level, you are a level 1 character. Every character is unique. Every character has their own unique strengths. Every character has their own sort of weaknesses as well. You have to sort of enhance your strengths through leveling up and choosing the right sort of upgrade path. And you have to mitigate your weaknesses by either improving those base stats as far as you can with buffs, or by just pushing everything into your strengths and just sort of dealing with your weaknesses. You level up your character through organic gameplay. Basically, when you jump into the level, you have a character who will have a very, very, very weak weapon, and you're maybe auto attacking maybe once every 2 seconds. Now, every character has different weapons. Your starter weapon might be the classic Castlevania style whip that'll whip in the direction you're facing once every 2 seconds. So it's up to you to manage your movement and make sure you're facing an enemy when your whip gets deployed. Other characters start with throwing daggers. They'll throw one throwing dagger in the direction you're facing. Other characters are magic based, so they have a wand that will fire one spell every couple of seconds. Some of the magic casting characters will cast it in the direction you're facing. One of the starter characters, though, however, will fire the spell at a random enemy on the screen, which gives you even less control of it. Every time you kill an enemy, they will drop an orb. Pick up the orb, and it is your XP. So they will drop orbs that will give you XP. They can drop health items, rarely. They will drop gold coins or bronze coins, which you can then use to buy more characters or more buffs in the shop and things like that. Once you have collected enough of the orbs to upgrade, you will level up. At this point, the game will pause and you'll get a menu on the screen. And the menu on the screen will give you a choice of 3 things. Now, these 3 things are all buffs for your character. So it could be a weapon upgrade. It might be a health upgrade. It could be an upgrade for your armor, an upgrade for some passive ability that you don't have but you want. So it could create a garlic, for example. Garlic will create a buffer zone around your character where when enemies pass through it, they will damage themselves and hopefully die before they get to you. Or it can be a movement upgrade. So movement upgrades, before you get too excited, they basically just make your character walk faster. So they will. So yeah, so every time you level up, every time you get enough orbs to level up, you will get a choice between 3 things. Now, this game is all about character builds. You need to focus on your character. Before you pick a character, it will tell you their traits, what they're good at, what they're bad at, what the weapon is, etc., etc. That is your chance to pick either the character that suits your sort of gameplay that you're looking to have, or it's for you just to educate yourself on what sort of upgrade paths you should be taking with this character. If you have a spell casting character, for example, you want to upgrade your wand so that it fires 2 projectiles every couple of seconds rather than just 1. Or you can strengthen them, you get fire. There's a whole load of stuff you can do, but it's all about creating a character build that suits your character and, more importantly, suits your gameplay. In any given run, you can fully upgrade 6 weapons. So the weapons can all be upgraded to certain levels. You can upgrade, you're allowed to pick up enough upgrades to fully equip 6 weapons, at which point the game completely changes. And even though I said it's 6 weapons, it's technically more because there are hidden weapons throughout a level. They will spawn randomly. They will appear on your mini map, and you can walk to them and pick them up. But 6 weapons is all you're given, and you can upgrade them. I think it's to level 5 every single run. So that is how many. Once you hit the max amount of upgrades for weapons and abilities, the game, every time you level up, will just give you gold coins in order to buy more things from the store in the main menu. So the gameplay starts off really, really, really simple. It's just you and a handful of really low-level enemies. It's bats. It's bats. And these enemies typically die from just 1 hit from your weapon. But as time goes on, the difficulty starts scaling. So those bats turn into snakes, turn into dogs, werewolves, until eventually you're fighting demons and all sorts of other mythological creatures. Now, that difficulty scaling happens regardless of what you do with your level. So this game quickly becomes a race against the clock. You know the difficulty is going to scale, and it is your job as the player to keep your damage output higher than what the game's enemies are going to be doing to you. So it is a race, it is an arms race between you and the CPU. You have to keep your damage output higher than the computer can keep its damage output. If you do that, you should get to the end of the run. If you don't do that, if you fall behind at any point, maybe you've upgraded the wrong things, or you're not very good at aiming your throwing daggers or your throwing axes, whatever it might be. If you fall behind, the game will become almost impossible, if not totally impossible, and you will die. You will die. However, in saying that, if you do keep ahead of the difficulty curve, the screen will become completely covered in your projectiles, your area of effects, your spells, everything. It becomes a bullet hell. This game becomes a bullet hell, but instead of you dodging the bullets, you are the one unleashing it. I think Punkle put it in their market material for the game, become the bullet hell, and that's exactly what it is. Your job is to keep your DPS as high as you possibly can. You have to destroy enemies as quickly as you can. You have to pick up those orbs as quickly as you can. You have to make the right decisions every single time you get the chance to upgrade. If you make the wrong decision, it will negatively affect your damage output, and you won't be able to do it. It is brilliantly simple. This game looks so simple because of its graphics. It sounds so simple because of its sound effects, and its mechanics in gameplay are really simple as well. However, all the depth to Vampire Survivors comes from not the gameplay, but it comes from the decisions you make every single time you get the opportunity to upgrade your character. You have to think about it. That's why the game pauses. There's no danger to you whilst you make your decision. But you have to choose correctly at all times. If you do make a massive mistake, maybe you've chosen the wrong sort of upgrade at the wrong time, the level will spawn a finite amount of chests, and I think it's 10. Don't quote me on that, but if you can get your character to the chests, you get the opportunity to upgrade something else as well. It's a dice roll. It's a RNG element. You could go to the chest hoping to get an upgrade to your throwing daggers. Maybe you got 3, but you want 6 or 4 or 5, whatever it might be. The chest isn't guaranteed to give you the weapon upgrade that you are looking for. It could be luck, it could be an area of effect, but all the upgrades will help you in some way. But you just need to be careful of what you're doing. You need to be cognizant of what you're doing all the time. If you make a mistake, it will cost you your run, and you will have to restart the level again. Thankfully, the games only last about anywhere between 5 minutes and 30 minutes. The maximum it's ever going to last is 30 minutes. So it is, but that's what it's all about. It is all about building your character, and every character, as I said, is different. They have different strengths, different weaknesses, which means that you can't just rely on the same build over and over again. There is no universal build that will guarantee you a victory or a win in Vampire Survivors. You have to really think fluidly. Think, what do I need right now? What am I going to need in the next few levels when this difficulty curve ramps up? It is really brilliant. It's all about decision making. There is a strategic element to this. It is absolutely, it's just brilliant. It is just brilliant. If you do keep up your damage and you do hit 25 minutes, at some point between 21 minutes and 30 minutes, the game will go, okay, and it will put I think it's called a game killer, I think is what they call it. So a game killer is effectively thousands and thousands and thousands of enemies on screen, and this boss that can go through everything and everyone to get to you, and they will kill you pretty much instantly. Their damage output is frighteningly high. Now, some of them look like massive cyclopses. One of them looks like death, the classic Grim Reaper style. For the longest time, I thought these game killers were just, okay, you've survived long enough. Now we're going to instantly kill you. That is not the case. I thought they were just like these invulnerable enemies just designed to kill you and, just give you your rewards at the end of the level. But you can kill them. Apparently, you can kill them. I think I've killed one, and it was purely by accident. I picked up, the enemy came on the screen. I just ran. I just ran and got to one of the hidden weapons on the level, and it was rosary beads, and killed it instantly. And in the game, just that was it. Congratulations, you've done it. Unlocked a new character, unlocked a few new weapons, unlocked a new couple of beasts in the beast catalog and stuff like that. It is brilliant. The game killers are incredible. They will kill you 99.9% of the time, but you can kill them. Usually what happens is the enemies flood the screen, you see the big boss, and it just causes this Benny Hill style chase as you run away, firing everything you have at it, hoping that it doesn't get to you, because if it gets to you, you can't move, and it will kill you in a few seconds. It is such a fantastically designed game. The genius of Vampire Survivors is it's so quick. Every run is so quick. Every run is utterly unique as well. It's an old school arcade feeling game like Smash TV or something along those lines, and it's absolutely perfect for that. I'll have one more run. It's not just the game creates that feeling. It feels like the game is completely designed around one more run. If you feel like the game has cheated you in some way, maybe the RNG has not given you the upgrades that you need, and you haven't been able to go through the level as you want it to, or you haven't been able to see the end of the level, you feel like a game's cheated you. You want to get your own back on that level, and you want to get your own back on the RNG gods and the game, and you go back into it. It's so short, it's so sharp, and it's so tightly designed. You will have one more run over and over and over again. You will turn on this game to have a 20-minute blast at a level you've been struggling with, and then you look up at the clock and 3 or 4 hours have gone by and you have seen nothing but Vampire Survivors. That is the genius of it. I mean, I could talk for days about how good this game is, about builds, etc., but none of it is applicable to you, because every run is so different and everyone plays games differently. I like maximizing my damage. I know watching some videos online, a lot of people put a lot of time and experience and upgrades into passive AoEs in order to make it difficult for the game killers to damage them as well. There's no right way of playing Vampire Survivors. There's no wrong way of playing it either. It is all about imagination. It is about knowledge of what you're going to be facing. It is about picking the right things to suit what you need from it. You can get a lot from Vampire Survivors. It is a game that at first glance looks really simple and looks really basic, but the more you peel back the layers to it, the more game there is there. There's an awful lot of systems here going on that it's just so deceptively deep. It is like all the great games of the 90s, those arcade perfect games. It's easy to pick up. It's really, really, really difficult to master. I have spent 40 odd hours on this game. I am no expert at it. I have watched some runs that I only wish I could replicate. Most of the time I have a good run. It almost feels like luck rather than my own skill, but there is learning to it. It is just a fantastic, fantastic game. And right now, all I've talked about is the base game. I think at the time of this podcast, there are 10 levels in the base game, a couple hidden levels, and every level has a boss, so to speak, the game killer. There's 31 characters. There's hundreds of weapons. There are hundreds of enemies. You collect everything. Every time you pick up a weapon for the first time, it will go into like a weapon catalog. Every time you kill an enemy for the first time, it will go into like an enemy's catalog. There's just a lot of stuff. If for the completion site there, this will take you hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours to complete. There are 31 characters in the base game, but I think at the time of me making this podcast, I think if we include all the DLCs, paid and free, there is 81 characters in this game. And to get all the achievements to 100% complete it, you're going to have to complete every level with every character, and collect every weapon, killing every enemy. It is just a mind-boggling task to be able to do that. I don't even know how you do that. It would take hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours that you'll have nothing but fun. Vampire Survivors is just a fantastic game. Of the DLCs, there are 4 of them, and they're all apparently excellent. The only one I have put any time into is a DLC called Operation Guns, which, if you don't know, is a Contra themed DLC. What it does is it completely palette swaps everything out of Vampire Survivors and turns it into like Contra inspired. Gone is all the horror, well, a lot of the horror elements. In its place are jungles, alien ships. There are turrets that appear out of the ground. The characters, there's Contra characters. All the weapons are Contra, so you have your machine gun, your spread shot, the flamethrower, the whole heap. It is just so good. It takes all the great stuff from Vampire Survivors, all the stuff that you remember from Contra from way back on the NES or the Master System or wherever you played it, and it just smashes them together. The gameplay doesn't change at all. It is still exactly the same game, but with everything attached to it from Contra, it elevates it a lot. I have been looking reviews up online of the DLCs, and apparently the Contra one is one of the worst reviewed. But it still has I think it's 86% on Metacritic for Operation Guns, which just goes to show you the absolute quality that the rest of the DLC must be at. It is just a frighteningly good game. So I feel like this is really all I can say about Vampire Survivors. The gameplay is very, very simple. There's not much more for me to say about it. I'll give you my overall thoughts. Vampire Survivors is just a really, really, really good game. It is a really good game. It is a great game. Is it a game that's worth your time and worth your money? Yes. Even if you think it's a game that you're not going to like, maybe you don't like top-down shooters, or you don't have any sort of nostalgia for the 80s and sort of the early days of console gaming, is it still worth your time? Yes. If you play games because you like to be challenged on more than just raw Twitch skill, you want a game that encourages you to think, that encourages you to use your imagination, to experiment, to take risks in order to get big rewards. Vampire Survivors is the game for you. It is an excellent arcade shooter that is bite-sized enough that you can pick it up and play it and put it straight back down if you wish. It takes 20 to 30 minutes. But it is a game that is moreish, that is so addictive that it borderlines on addiction and obsession. It is a really easy game to pick up. It is an extremely hard game to put down. It is a game that will stick with you. When you fail on it, you will review the gameplay back in your mind and go, what could I have done differently at any point of that run? I have found myself recording my gameplay and then watching it back and going, I should have picked that, I should have picked that, I should have picked that. At the end of the day, it's self-reflection, and it's all pointless, because your next run, you're going to get different RNG, you're going to get different upgrade paths, you're probably going to be playing a different character. But it is one of those games where you learn every single time you play it, and you get better every single time you play it. And more than that, the game gets better every single time you play it. as I said at the start, this game comes out on PlayStation on the 29th of August, which is Friday week. If you want my recommendations on Vampire Survivors, is buy it. If you don't already own it on Steam or any other console, just buy it. You won't regret it. It's not going to be expensive, and it's going to be worth every single penny that they ask for it. But buy it. I mean, I don't know what else to say. Vampire Survivors is just a great game. Buy it on PlayStation when it comes out. I don't think you'll regret it at all. If you want my score for Vampire Survivors, I really, really, really want to give it S tier, but I just don't think I can. A lot of its systems and sort of other things, like how you unlock characters, how you unlock levels, how you progress through levels, etc., is hidden. It's never really sort of communicated to the player. So I really want to give it an S tier, but I don't think I can. The music is forgettable. The graphics are fine. It does get incredibly impressive when there's thousands and thousands of enemies on screen, hundreds of bullets and everything else going on screen. It does look really good in the later sort of run, but at the start it looks poor, let's be honest. I'm still going to give it an A tier. Vampire Survivors is an A tier game. It is exceptionally good. It's so much more than some of its parts. It is an incredibly good time. It is difficult. It is fun. It is addictive. It is everything that you want in a game. When people think video games, they Vampire Survivor should be one of the first games people think of. It is just a video game, and it's incredible. But yeah, that's it. A tier. Buy it. And we'll go to the wrap up section. And that is it. Another episode all wrapped up, and the first ever review episode, and the first ever solo episode. It is a whole heap of firsts at High Scores, High Stakes here. Let me know what you think. Obviously, this is it's a strange thing for me. Obviously, I usually have at least one co-host to bounce off of, and when I'm struggling to find my words, or someone else to come in. But let me know what you thought. Would you like to see more solo episodes of us talking about reviewing games that we like or games that we don't like? But let us know what you think. Let us know on Twitter, or if you want to let us know as part of your answer to the question of the week, whether you like this or not. The poll of the week this week is going to be, would you like to see more reviews and more solo episodes of us? It would make it easier to get content out on some weeks, like this week. If I didn't do this, there wouldn't be an episode this week, just because it's been really difficult for people to get together at the same time online. But do let us know. If we'll just go through all the housekeeping then that we did at the start. If you haven't already, please do review the podcast. It does help with algorithms and getting us sort of seen on Spotify and all the other platforms that we're on. If you already give us a score review but you haven't given us a written review, please do that. Tell us the good. More importantly, tell us the bad. What do you not like about High Scores, High Stakes? What would you like to see changed? If we don't hear about it, we can't change it. And if you haven't already told a family member or a friend or anyone who you think would like this, if you haven't told them about it, tell them about it. Give them the link and let them listen and see if they like it as well. And really, with all that, if you want to catch us anywhere else on the internet, highscoreshighstakes.com. Click on the link of wherever you're trying to find us: X, YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch, TikTok, the whole heap. It's all there. If you want to send us an email as well, there's an email button on top of highscoreshighstakes.com as well. So with all that being said, next week's episode should be Cardinal Smith's turn at contestant on Who Wants to Be a PlayStation Millionaire. All going to plan. That's what next week's episode is going to be. And with all that being said, I have nothing left to say except I've been MrLuvvaLuvva. This has been High Scores, High Stakes. Thanks for listening. See you on Monday. Love you all. Bye.